Well, hello. Welcome to Black Men Speak podcast. It's a show about ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things in their lives and communities. I'm your host, Keith Dent, and today we have a great guest. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy it. And if you are a regular listener, welcome back. And I just want to let you know that I really appreciate you for being here. Well, today we're going to talk about one of my passions, cycling. But more importantly, our guest today is going to share how he turned his love of cycling to help others. But before we get to him, I'm going to date myself a little bit. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite movies. The movie came out in 1979, and it was called Breaking Away. It's about a group of 19-year-olds trying to find their way in Indiana, but the main character is obsessed with cycling, and primarily the Italian racing team. And, I used to watch that movie every time it came on. Back then on cable, they'd show a movie about 4 or 5 different times during the month, and I watched it every time it would come on. So, and then that turned into the Tour de France. I'd watch it every time it came on TV. Greg LeMond, he was one of my favorite riders, and him battling Miguel Indurain, I guess for the gold yellow jersey. And one thing I loved about it is just the speed and endurance it took not only to finish the race but to win. And I remember when I got my first road bike. And the funny story, I still have it, but the funny story about it is that really the only reason why I got the bike is because I was in the MS ride, and I really started to do that in the 5-borough bike tour, and I was on the West Side Highway, almost ready to finish the race, and I was pretty fit back then. I think it was in my late 20s, and then there was an older lady. And I don't even know how old she was, but she was older than me, and she was on a road bike, and she passed me like I was standing still. And I was, the competitive part of me, man, I was pissed off. I was like, what is this going on here? And so that really also just turned me into love it even more. And when I got my first road bike, and then just recently, just to kind of get back into the sport, I joined this bike club called the Major Taylor Cycling Club, and it's really great to see people, like yourself that is into cycling. And so if anyone doesn't know who Major Taylor is, he's American. He was an African-American bicycle racer, and his real name was Marshall Walter Major Taylor. And he was really the first Black sports superstar because he was a world champion in racing back in 1899. And then he was American sprint champion in 1900, and he set numerous track cycling records. But to honor that, Major Taylor Cycling Club is kind of a national club, and they have clubs all over the U.S. and I think even abroad as well. So Daniel Morteh, who our guest is today, he's also in the same cycling club, but he's in the Iron. He's in both, but he's also an Iron Rider, which is kind of the New York club, and it's just great to see him. We also have another kind of relationship through Rising Tide Capital, organization that I work for, and Daniel's just a wonderful photographer, and we may get into that a little bit, but today we're just going to talk about how he used cycling to battle the quarantine, and then the beautiful thing that came from it. So I'm not going to give up a little bit. I'm going to not tell you what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to let him speak for himself. So Daniel, welcome, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. You're doing better than me. I didn't get a chance to ride this weekend, but I know you got your rides in. So yeah. So I'm glad you're here today. So let's go back to 2015. So I know, just checking out, looking at your bio, that was kind of the first time you got on a bike. So what was your life like back then?
It was interesting. It was I was in my late 20s. I was getting in. I was I graduating college, still trying to figure out how to make it in the world. As you know, through Rising Tide, I went to their program to try to figure out how to become a photographer and a filmmaker and actually make a living off of it. It was a struggle, especially around that time. So I had a lot of ups and I had a lot of downs, and was just trying to figure things out. So through a series of jobs I've had, cycling was something that helped me through a great deal. Fresh graduated from college in 2008. I was, the jobs that I needed required me to get there really early. Like I had a coffee shop job, so I got a mountain bike and I started riding to work there. I did that for a few years. Then when I was working as a concierge in North Bergen, that was 5 miles away, and I did the same thing. So when I started working at a gym, a fitness center, I started taking all the spin classes, and it was just really fun. I figured I had a gym membership, I might as well take it, get some of the weight off. And then, 2015, that was around the time my father died, and I was like, really need to do something that doesn't require heavy drinking and depression. So just for some reason, I saw the ad to the Fibro Bike Tour, and around that time, Jersey City has a really good cycling community. I did their ward tour, which is a bike ride where they just ride around the throughout the entire city of Jersey City, and it's 20 miles. It's nothing big. So I decided to do the Fibro Bike Tour, 40 miles. That was the longest I've ever done.
Yeah, it's a great ride.
Yeah, and by the time I was done, I was like, that was incredibly easy. I don't know whether it was the spin classes that I was taking or what, but I just felt like it was easy. It was actually harder to get home because of the ferry and 40,000 people trying to get on the boat as
Yeah, right.
opposed to doing the actual ride. So I just kept doing it, and it just stuck with me. It was something that was really fun to do, and it was a great, great, great stress reliever for whatever it is. You have all this stress and anxiety, and then you just get on the road. You try to go as far or as fast as you can, and you just feel so much better after it.
Wow, that's awesome. And so, what I thought was interesting that you chose cycling as opposed to any other sport that you could have, selected. Was there any distinct thing about cycling that really drew you to that sport as opposed to any, other ones?
I don't know. Well, I ran track in high school, and cycling, I guess, was the only thing that you can really do on your own. You don't have to rely on teammates or anything like that. Um, I didn't have the best high school experience, so being a part of teams was kind of difficult because of the team
Mm,
I was forced to have. They didn't make it really appealing to do other sports such as football and basketball because, I was getting bullied a lot. So I never really had any interest in doing sports that required a group of people together. I continued to run, but the more you run, the more your knees start falling apart. So I
right.
decided to stand up, and cycling became something that was just for transportation. If you live in Jersey City, it's really easy to get around this town on a bike, better than a car. I can get halfway across town in minutes as opposed to waiting for public transportation or taking an Uber. So it was always drawn to me, and then to actually see like this competitive um, activities when it comes to cycling was really interesting. And when I did the Fibro Bike Tour, that was great. I felt so rejuvenated after it was over. And then when I did other city rides such as the Tour de Bronx and Tour de Queens. That was really cool. And I was able to build this camaraderie of friends. Especially at my age, our mindsets was very different. So to have these people as your cycling partners and your friends was something that was very appealing to me. And when there came a challenge, like, okay, you've done 20 miles, you've done 40 miles. Have you ever done 50 or have you done 80? Now it's such an amazing feeling to see city lines when you ride. You're entering a new city, or even better, entering a new state.
Mm.
That's something that really, really is something that I enjoy to see, and it really fuels the adrenaline. It's honestly the closest thing to feeling like you're a superhero.
Wow.
Doing
Yeah,
something
and
that,
there is something to seeing different terrain on a bicycle. You get a whole different uh, you get a different perspective when you're on a bike versus walking or in a car. So
yeah.
I really can understand that concept. Um, so one other interesting thing was on, I guess, June 30th, 2019 specifically. You were going, I guess, through a breakup, and you decided to ride 100 miles. Um,
Yes.
and so you just got on the bike and you said you just rode, and then before you knew it, you had rode 100 miles. And so, what did you really learn about yourself just in that journey?
Well, I learned from that experience that, in life there are wins and losses. You know, you can have like a really bad week, tough day at work, car breakdown. You break up with your ex. All this stuff can happen in 1 week, and a lot of and it takes a toll on your mental, on your health, makes you feel, gives you a lot of self doubt. But then when you do something to challenge yourself, such as saying, "Okay, I'm going to get on this bike, and I'm not getting off this bike until it hits 100 miles," you know, you feel like you won something, and that became something that has been a part of my routine since that day. Like, I think every Sunday I literally have been on a bike riding. If not riding to work, literally been on a bike do 40, 50, 60, 70 miles. 40 miles is a light day to me now. Like I like to do, if I'm doing 40 miles, it's 6 a.m. I'm back at 10 to do another ride with another group of friends or something like that.
Wow. Wow.
Um, but yeah, it allows me to feel victorious. It allows me to feel like, okay, if I can do this, everything else in my life is manageable. So when that, I dealt with a breakup, you know, and when I got back after doing 100 miles, okay, if I can do that, okay, I can get a new apartment. I can, fix my credit. I can get a
Hmm.
cosign. You know, I can do that. And also like dealing with that was also something that reminded me of when I was dealing with a breakup in college, and that was the closest I've ever thought about having suicidal thoughts, basically.
Hmm.
And I never want to feel or even come close to that feeling ever again. So when this breakup happened, you know what I'm saying, I was just like, okay, I gotta clear my head somehow. I can't be alone with my thoughts. So that's the main reason why I got on the bike. And then after that, when I came back, I was just like, okay, I can handle this.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, because I know that those kind of thoughts, and then just dealing with kind of a negative emotion or things that happen in your life, and the fact that you are able to one use the bicycle as a way of therapy, and to get away from some of the things that you're experiencing is pretty awesome. um and so with your 100 miles, so did you actually, and so I guess in your first ride, did you have to take many stops in order to, or did you just keep going? You didn't have to stop until you got to the end?
Well, since I frequent 9W quite often, I bump into a lot of people that I knew while riding. So there was times where I
Okay.
stopped. What's the name of that coffee shop in Nyack that people go to all the time? Everyone goes to Strictly's Bicycles in Fort Lee. That's just the Grand Central Station for cycling. And then there's also the Biblical Cafe in Nyack as well. But ironically, when I was doing my 100 miles, I passed by some of the Iron Rider members, and so I did a few of the miles, just dragging along with them, and then once they hit Strictly, they literally said, "Okay, we're all going home. What are you planning to do?" And I was like, "I still got 30 more miles. Like, I'm not done yet." So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
after we all left from Strictly's, I got another cup of coffee because Strictly's make coffee. And then I rode all the way back from Fort Lee to Jersey City. And my house is not that far from Liberty State Park. I could have easy. Just take a left and go home. Literally stop with park was right there. I was at mile 85, so I'm like, I'm going to ride around this park until I hit 100 miles.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think we're having a little bit of feedback, so I don't know if it's a little bit of interference. Hopefully, it's not the the broadcast, but we'll keep going. So
Yeah.
so then one thing that happened, you created this organization called Bikes Will Save the World. So
Yeah.
what made you decide to do that? What was the reasoning behind that?
Um, I decided to do Bikes to Save the World because when the pandemic started, there was literally nothing else to do. I work mainly at gyms. When I got into cycling, I got my spin certification. So I started teaching spin classes, and then slowly I started doing TRX and kettlebell, and basically my whole career changed from photography and video to fitness. And then the pandemic happened, shut all the gyms down. So I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do, but I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to ride 300 miles a week until I figure something out. Um, so it really helped me in the mental state to keep busy. I met a lot of new friends on the road. I started riding with new friends during this whole process. I was able to get a job at a bike shop during the pandemic, which was beneficial. And around that time, for my birthday, 1 year ago today, me and my friend who has the same birthday as I do, and we're both cyclists, this small world, we decided to ride to Philadelphia. And then another friend of ours who rides said, "Can I join?" Sure. And then, long story short, the day of the ride, I was surprised to see 14 people, various different races, colors, ethnicities, background, sexual preference, all that. Everybody was different. And we all got together. Some of them never done 100 miles before. Some of them I never met before. And we decided to ride all the way to Philadelphia. And then once we entered Philadelphia, I'm like, a dozen people who probably didn't know each other before this ride came together, teamed up, helped each other to reach a goal that not many people think is possible to do. And then I looked around these people, and this is around the time that Ahmaud Arbery was killed, jogging, George Floyd protests were being uproar, so racial tension was developing, and you're dealing with a pandemic that you have no clue when it's going to end and what is the results. So I looked around, I'm like, man, bikes can save the world right now, and that's what
Right.
really started. Then I started asking people what did they gain from cycling during the pandemic. Some people got mental stress reliever. They accomplished more goals, they're a lot better in life, healthier, lost weight. The list goes on. So I just started a website, and I just wanted to take down everyone's testimonies, of what they got, and it slowly just manifested into so much more. We started selling apparel. I started having a staff of volunteers because I'm nowhere in a place to pay them yet. And we are coming up with different projects, and we decided to do this year's ride to Philly. Not only making an annual birthday ride, but this year we're going to do it as a fundraiser.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that. Because of course I'm going to be on the Philly ride, and I saw that, and I was like, "Whoa, wow!" I really challenged myself because the last 100-mile ride I did was the MS ride, I think a couple of years ago, um, and so I just remember, but that ride was up Bear Mountain, and and that's no joke. But yeah, but so back to you said with your website you allow people to share stories, and so was there a particular story that someone posted that really inspired you?
Yeah. And I bumped it into the first post actually, and it's the reason why this ride became a fundraiser because my friend Aaliyah, who's a member of the Iron Riders, who's also her father is a red cap. If you ever heard of the Brooklyn Red Caps, you need to Google them So her
Mm,
history of cycling goes down deep.
okay.
She decided to start a nonprofit during this pandemic because she said there's no time like today, and that represents so much of what I was going through. You know what I'm saying? Because like I felt like I needed to start during this pandemic. There was a lot of stuff going on with me personally, my jobs. What I'm saying it was the first year. What I'm saying of being in this being single after a 5-year relationship. And there's things that I want to do that I never got a chance to do that I don't have the opportunity to. And there's no better time to do it than either 10 years ago or today. So, and since you can't do it 10 years ago, today is the best time. And she decided to start a nonprofit that gets kids in inner city communities into cycling. And that's was so dope to hear that she did that. And when me and my cycling partner Jeff were deciding to turn it into a fundraiser, I was just like, my friend has this awesome nonprofit that she started during the pandemic. And we was like, all right, let's do it. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do the ride regardless. So if like it helps somebody, we figured why not? And that connection that me and the story, me and Aaliyah has in terms of that story, it really, really makes it so much more meaningful, especially to me.
That's great. And I think and what's the name of the organization?
It's called Bike Upgrades. Yes.
Bike upgrades. Okay.
Yeah, it's taken from a very infamous quote. You don't buy upgrades, you ride upgrades, and it's a really awesome nonprofit based out of New York. And they really get young kids in low income environments into cycling. They have this awesome. They provide group rides. They teach bike handling skills, and they even have a race scholarship where they find someone that really is into cycling, and not only do they provide them a bike, they give them licensing and a travel pension. So I mean, this can start kids into. I never knew cycling was a sport. I never knew cycling was and cycling was definitely not an accessible sport when I was a
Right.
kid. So to provide that outlet for some kid in the Bronx that lives in the projects, what I'm saying? It's for some kid who parents are from another country who can't even fathom the idea of spending over $1,000 on a bike. Like it's really, really an awesome thing that she's doing. And like if something as simple as riding a bike for a couple of hours can help a kid get there, then I'm down for it every single time.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I'll definitely type later on. Type in the organization so if people that are listening want to give. I'm going to give as part of my contribution to riding. But
Thank
the fact that and one of the things, like I said, cycling was great, but you never saw people of color riding.
No,
And the fact that we've had someone like Major Taylor to look up to, and it seems like now more people are getting into the sport. With there's a HBCU riding team, and there's a couple cats out in LA that are really good. And so, if if this is a way to bring more people to the sport, that I'm all for it. So that's pretty cool.
yeah,
So I'm glad
definitely.
you're doing that. So yeah. So I know you just were in a recent article, like Velo News, I think that's
Mhm.
called. And so you talked about riding. While riding, you have to, when to go hard, when to coast, and when to enjoy the ride. I just thought that was pretty cool. Um, so in cycling, when do you find you do those three things? Is there a
Uh,
particular moment, or is there decide when you want to do, like, go hard, for instance?
it depends on. It's never really specifically on certain rides. It's just certain distances in the ride. You know, going hard on hills, going hard when you're dealing with like crazy traffic or being very defensive. Knowing when the coast is just focusing on your balance, planning out things on how to handle the road coming up, and just to remind yourself that you have done something not many people will want to do, like ride in the same amount of miles. So what I'm saying, enjoy that, revel in that for a minute. So that happens in probably almost every single ride that I do. During the whole pandemic and the winter time, what I'm saying, normally this is a very seasonal sport, so you hardly see cyclists in the wintertime. But my a group of my friends that I did the Philly ride with, we were riding pretty much all year, even in the winter. So like it really helped us test our strength and our endurance through harsh conditions, which is something that I constantly learn, and it's something that I'm grateful for. You know, knowing when the coast comes from, like just being able to, like, when you have those days where it's a nice good ride and you're planning things in your head, and it really helps with your overall just confidence and happiness, because like if you're trying to hammer it the entire time and you're killing yourself, you're not enjoying the ride. You're not even thinking about how to handle the ride. You're just thinking about just overexerting your energy. And like it's all about, like, just at the end of the day, it's something that, I'm saying, that tests who you are, and you can enjoy it while doing it.
Yeah, that's cool. So with those kind of three concepts, how have you transferred that to life? And how do you use those three concepts?
Well, I'm saying, you have to, it's whenever a certain obstacle comes into your life, you know you have to plan and go hard to gain that, to achieve that goal. The coasting comes from, okay, taking a moment to know, to plan it out, and then once you achieve or come close to the achievement, realize that you're doing more than not a lot of people are willing to do. So many people's reactions to hardship in life is just blaming the world, blaming society, accepting that they're too weak and they can't handle it, and then they just throw the papers in the air and just be like, okay, this is my life and it sucks, rather than um, taking advantage of the fact that, one, I have absolutely no illusions during this pandemic how lucky I've been that I
Mm,
have not gotten sick. I have full functions of both of all my limbs and my head, so I can always go out there and work. So as long as I still have that, I have the ability to achieve whatever goals that I want. And during this pandemic really taught me that, because I could have been easily been in the same similar situation as many of my friends who, like, had to, was fear of being homeless, was in fear
mm,
of, like, losing their jobs, not being able to provide income for their families. Like my goal during the pandemic when it first started was to simplify my goals to just, okay, make sure you pay rent on time every month. That's all you got to do right now until this pandemic is over.
mm.
And I done that. Then it's okay, save some money, because I have to go to Ghana real soon. Save as much money as you can, and I'm doing that. And just really just dumb down the goal, make it really specific, and you are able to really just able to go hard to doing that, just having a more specific goal, you know coasting by planning it out, mapping it out, taking a breather when you need to,
Mm.
before saying you hammer it out again. And, once you achieve those goals, just look behind you and see how far you came from being that person that was scared to death about doing anything because, like, you thought that it was an impossible task.
Right. And so it's almost as if cycling in itself is a really great metaphor for your life right now and your journey.
100%. 100%. 90% of the things I do, or the problems that I have, before I try to attack it and go hard at it, I go for a bike ride.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, half of my bike ride this morning was getting ready to have this interview, you know, and then what's going to go on for the rest of the week. I'm saying, there's a lot of stuff. My scheduling with several different gyms and stuff like that. My plans for having to go to Ghana and stuff like that. All this stuff is what I have to deal with today. And the first thing I did this week was go on a bike ride this morning. You know,
Oh, okay.
it's because it's a great metaphor. Know when to go hard, and know when to coast, and just know when to enjoy the ride. And I really want to make sure that that's how my week is going to be. And I feel like that was the perfect setup.
Great, great. Well, this has been fantastic, but I have it's not necessarily a surprise, but all the guests that I always have the show, they talk about what they've done and things that they've accomplished, which is always great. And anything in the minute to me is just fantastic and it needs to be shared. But one thing I always love to ask of my guests is how they're feeling, because that's really one thing as African American men we don't talk about enough. And so my question, or the last question that we'll have today, is what's on your mind right now as a Black man?
Oh man. Uh, what's on my mind? Uh, uh, when is my next ride? I know what's on my mind is, okay, what can I do to make this? What can I do to make my life and my situation better within the course of this month? You know, that's always on my mind. I still have, I still deal with, like, saying insecurity issues and self doubt and stuff like that, and I've been working on that. I will have to say, as much as I've saved so much during the pandemic, I've had cycling as my therapy for so long as during this pandemic. The best thing that I have done so far has been seeing a therapist,
Mm,
and that's something that is completely uh, um, something that has been inaccessible for men of color, or something that has never been a priority. My parents are old school Africans, saying, from Ghana, West Africa.
mm,
So the idea of therapy, the idea of having these emotions that you need to make attention to, has never been a priority to them, have never been of any interest of them. They did the best they can with what they know, and I greatly appreciate them for that. But there were things like that that affect me to this day. And one of the things that I still battle with is my own insecurity issues, in terms of, like, financial status, social economical status, like, but one thing that's great about cycling is that, like, it's a constant reminder to me that, that I'm doing a lot and I'm making progress and I'm making moves, and most importantly, I can look back and see what I accomplished. I'm really, really grateful to have the people in my life that constantly remind me of that. And it gets to a point where you definitely have to mix your humility with confidence. I'm surviving this pandemic. I have a roof over my head. I have more than one bike.
yeah.
I have really, really good people in my life. It's so easy for all that to be gone, and it's not the luck of the draw. It's because I work hard at it. And but there are also always some times where I feel like I'm not working hard enough. And it's something that I battle with every day.
Mm.
So that's pretty much what's normally on my mind 90% of the time.
90% of the time. And so a ride can always help that.
A ride definitely
Yeah.
helps balance that
Mhm.
immensely. Yes.
And so I know I don't want to elaborate too much, but you had mentioned that you felt that therapy was inaccessible to you. Was there any particular or moment or some reason why you felt the time was a good time was now to turn to it? And how is it? And how has it helped? And the reason why I asked is because a couple months ago I did have a couple brothers on they're from the South, and they're two psychologists, and when we talked about therapy and how sometimes we as men can have a hard time taking that step to just talk to someone. So I commend you for that, and I think we need to do more of that. And so, was there any particular thing that you're like, well, now is the time, and I'm going to remove some of the stigma that was been fed to me about going?
Definitely. Now more than ever, it just came to a point where I think, on a personal level, like, I was still doing some of the same mistakes that I was doing when I was 20, 25, engaging with people.
Mm,
So, like, I knew that it was something that I need to work on and need to fix, as being 38 now.
mm,
And also, like, I mean, therapy is expensive. Like, to be real. Like, it's very
Right.
expensive. Like, most insurance don't cover it. So it just got to a point where I also, one another thing about, the fact that I'm no longer in a relationship, I just had more financial resources to actually invest in that rather than, other things. So,
Right.
I really put myself on a specific strict budget over the past, I'd say year and a half now,
Mm.
in terms of my finances. And
Right.
that had to be an expense that was just as important as food. I don't go out as much to eat out. Another great thing about cycling, it's, what I'm saying, after you buy the bike, what I'm saying, your day on the day riding is very cheap. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, you ride to a coffee shop, eat a cup of coffee, drink a cup of coffee, some bagels, and then you're back home. That your ride can't cost no more than $30.
Right.
Um, so, just being able to, like, prioritize my financial resources on things that were important to my overall health, and seeing a therapist definitely had to be one of them. It's just as, it's something that I realize is definitely just as important as, any other medical necessities. And it's great too. Like, I had a couple sessions, had a great breakthrough that allowed me to really reconnect to my sister that I really didn't get along with the majority of my life. So that really helped, in many ways. My organizational skills is getting a little bit better. So, it's something that, is beneficial. And, going back to saying that, my parents, are old school, like, Ghanaians, like, my uncle passed away. And I remember one of my family relatives, she said to his 16-year-old son, "You have to be strong for your mother." And I was like, "No, this kid cannot hear that right now.
Right.
He needs to feel. He needs to know that his feelings are valid, and he needs to express himself." And that was a scary thing to actually see, because generations later, we're still saying that to young men.
Mm.
They need to hide their feelings and hide their
Right.
emotions to look strong to other people. And that's something that needs to stop. And I've been doing that. I'm definitely been guilty of that. Trying to look strong has made me make bad decisions.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
it's time to, like, really just be able to present myself and be able to, like, just talk to someone. And
Right.
it really, and I felt like it was, definitely at this point in my life, it was definitely time to talk to someone about it.
Well, yeah, brother. And I'm glad you shared your story. That's awesome. But I did want to say, kind of as a coach as well, is that you are one of the spokes in the wheel. So the things that you're doing, the fact that you're actually found something that you're passionate about and found out a way to give that to the world. And I know it's called Bikes Will Save the World, but as you as the conduit is a spectacular thing. And so you should be commended for that. And if you can lean on nothing else, just leaning on the contribution that you're making, no matter how small, you're actually doing something, and that in turn will save somebody else. So I do commend you for that and for our story today. And so thank you.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me here. Yeah.
And I mean, and next week it'll be the bikes will save Keith Dent. So we'll get towards the end, and I'm like, look, I need some help, brother. Save me, save
Oh
me.
man, that's the best thing about it, man. Nobody's getting dropped. Okay, everybody's getting the map, but nobody's getting dropped. You know what I'm
Great,
saying?
great.
And trust me, man. Just think about those cheesesteaks when we get to Philly, man. It's gonna be worth it.
All right, I hear you. All right, well, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you as
All right,
well.
all right. Good night.
Good night.
So thank you for Daniel for sharing her story. And if you get a chance, look up his website, Bikes Will Save the World. And then also I think it's rideupgrades.org to donate for our ride, because we're probably gonna need ambulance for myself. And but I'm really excited for not only just to commune with and people and hang out with them, like-minded people, but also for a good cause. So I'll see you in a couple weeks. For those of you Next week won't be on the show. It's Father's Day. So for all the fathers out there, my father in particular, happy Father's Day, and other fathers that I know and love. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.